This study video is about classical conditioning. Classical conditioning is one of the theories of learning. It is explained through an experiment conducted on dogs. It was propounded by a Russian physiologist named Ivan P. Pavlov. This theory is also called stimulus substitution. As the video progresses, we might be able to understand better why it is also called as stimulus substitution. Ivan P. Pavlov was also awarded Nobel Prize for his work on studying the digestive process of dogs, which helped to propound this theory. This theory has totally three stages in it. So, before the stage 1, let us focus on stimulus and response. Stimulus is anything that grabs our attention and makes us to react verbally or non-verbally. Our reaction is the response. The first stage in this experiment is the state that is there before conditioning, in which the dog was given food, a natural stimulus. It is termed as unconditioned stimulus in this experiment, which makes the dog to salivate as a response, which is obviously a natural process. There is no conditioning in this stage. Whatever that happens naturally is happening. Now, in this stage, ringing of the bell, a conditioning stimulus is introduced. But for the bell sound, as of now in this stage, there won't be any kind of response from the dog. The experiment continues to stage 2. The bell is rung along with giving unconditioned stimulus, that is food. In this stage, the response of salivation is called conditioned. This is the stage in which conditioning starts and the dog starts associating food with ringing of the bell. In the final stage, that is stage 3, food is not at all presented. Only the bell is rung. Since already the dog has associated the bell sound with food, the salivation occurs. Now the process of conditioning has completed. So, what exactly is conditioning? A bell at the beginning does not have the capacity to make the dog salivate. But when it is rung along with the act of providing food, over time acquires the capacity to generate that response. Because the dog develops associating food with the bell sound. Here, over time, the bell sound, which has nothing to do with taste buds, acquires the capacity to bring out the response that normally is towards the food. This process, in which a neutral stimulus, which is not associated with any specific natural response, on pairing with a natural stimulus, acquires all the characteristics of natural stimulus, is called conditioning. Laws of conditioning. Through this experiment, 5 laws of conditioning was arrived at. First, law of causation. What is the cause of conditioning to occur? It occurs because of presenting the conditioning stimulus and unconditioning stimulus together. So, in this experiment, conditioning stimulus is bell sound, unconditioning stimulus is food, which is presented to the dog together, which leads to formation of an association in the mind of the dog. Second one, law of experimental extinction. Consider the same experiment. The dog is now conditioned to salivate when it listens to bell sound in the stage 3. After that, if the dog is made to hear bell sound, but the reinforcement, that is food, if not at all given in the day 1, it may salivate. Day 2 also it may salivate. But if this state continues, the dog will stop relating food with bell sound. As a result, eventually it will stop the salivating response towards the bell sound. Hence, to get the response, the reinforcing agent, that is food, must be presented. Breaking the presentation of food will lead to extinction or disappearing of the response towards the conditioning stimulus. So, reinforcement. Reinforcement is that stimulus, presence of which helps us get the desired response, and continuing to letting it be present leads to reoccurrence of response. Once it is absent, the power of conditioning stimulus to elicit the response will weaken and disappear. The third law, law of generalization. Once a living being is conditioned for one kind of stimulus, say a bell sound, anything similar to it, probably a buzzer sound, will also help to generate the same conditioned response. Example, if the buzzer sound is similar to bell sound, the dog will respond to buzzer sound in the same manner as it responded to bell sound. Fourth law, that is law of discrimination or selective conditioning. You can choose to eliminate a conditioned response by removing the conditioning stimulus. Example, if you don't want the dog to respond to the bell, then you can stop presenting it as conditioning stimulus. This will enable the weakening of conditioned response towards bell and ultimately eliminating response for the bell. And you can select something else as conditioning stimulus instead of bell sound, such as you can choose music, song, light, horn, etc. Replacement is always possible. Finally, the fifth law of higher order conditioning. Conditioning stimulus, that is bell sound, could be used to further conditioning. Example, once the conditioning is established, once the dog responds to the bell could be further used in pairing with another conditioning stimulus such as music, so that the same salivating response is generated towards the music. In this scenario, instead of food, the bell sound is used to generate the similar response towards music. Here, The bell sound acquires the property of unconditioned stimulus, that is food. This process of using a conditioning stimulus for creating a conditioning to another kind of conditioning stimulus is termed as a higher order conditioning. So, what are the educational implications? As teachers, we can use these laws in learning situations, especially to create associations, such as associating a word with the object that it actually represents in languages, to develop certain favorable attitudes and habits among the students, and then also to reverse the effect of negative conditioning that may not be useful to the particular child. So basically it is helpful in emotional shaping and habit formation. So what are the limitations that it has in it? So there are many other mental processes such as generalization, abstraction, reasoning, understanding, problem solving. All these we cannot explain through the classical theory of conditioning. So these are a totally different kind of mental activities which this theory doesn't explain at all.